good, bro.
Mitch, fucking hell, man. Hey, Mitch, what we talked off camera, and we've done that in about 6 minutes, bro. It was fucking unbelievable.
Hey, we need to get that on here, brother.
Eventually we will. Eventually we will, bro. Man, today you're in a rush. I'm not in a rush, but I felt like I'm in a rush. But 238 games for the Roosters. Yep. You played over 300 NRL games.
Yep.
Hardly, that's... What's that, like about 30 players that have ever done that?
Yeah, there's about 50 players
50
now.
players.
But as halfbacks, there wasn't a whole lot. I'm not sure, like actual sevens.
That's less.
There's only probably a handful.
Daly, Cooper.
Thurston, Brett Kamali, I think. Scotty Prince, I think, might have made it.
Yeah.
So there's not many.
It's a rare club.
Yeah.
Rare club. And you win the grand final 2013?
13, yeah.
Let's, obviously, I want to get into people understanding you really well because, you know, with the brief moments we've had just recently, you've changed a lot.
Yeah.
You know, everyone knows, you know, what your career was like.
Yeah.
It was a great career. You've represented New South Wales, had a lot of stick there as well.
Yeah.
Because you played against arguably the greatest Queensland squad ever.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did you win one series?
Yeah, won the series in 2019.
2019.
Yeah. So that was special.
That was huge. But let's fast forward. You're at the Roosters all your life. You make your debut there, I think 2009?
2007.
2007.
Yeah.
You're there all the way through. And then they bring Cooper Croc across.
Yeah.
I remember I seen you in the area,
you
know, and I remember at that point, because Chimes looks after you, right?
Nah, Chimes, that's where you would have seen. So Chimes did my deal. A mate of mine, Tristan Hayes, looks after my stuff, but he wasn't credited as a manager. Yeah. So Chimes actually did a little cashy out of it, so he would have been happy.
But, that's why he moved to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
With your cash there.
Exactly. He owes me.
And so, how did you feel at that moment? Because, you know, you were kind of the pin-up boy. You know, obviously there was a lot of things that happened at the Roosters in between, you know, your time there. But, you know, in the media they were saying that, you know, Cooper Cronk coming across is a good thing for Mitchell Pearce. What was going through your mind? Yeah,
I've spoken about it a bit. I think just at the time, obviously I've been at the Roosters for 11, 12 years, played first grade at halfback for 11 years. I was at the club since I was 16. So I actually had a pretty decent year that year, 2017. We bowed out against the Cowboys, who went on to the grand final in the major semi. And, you know, I was one of our better players that year. So it wasn't as if I've come off a dog shit year and really struggled. So the news was a couple of weeks into the off season. So it was pretty hard to take at the time, obviously because I didn't see it coming and that type of stuff. You know, being that sweet spot of my career, I was only sort of 27, 28. So when you get that kind of setback, it is disappointing. But at the same time, you get older and wiser and you see things for what they are. And we'd fallen short. We won the 13 grand final. You know, we had some really good years in hindsight, but we'd fallen short the last two seasons in the major semi. And Cooper Cronk came available, and his record speaks for itself. You know, he came in and won 2 competitions, and he was the out-and-out superstar halfback at the time of the generation, and an out-and-out leader, clean living guy who's done it all. So they got an awesome replacement, no doubt, and it worked out perfect for them. But it did hurt at the time. It was disappointing, but you know, as I said, you get older and you see things for what they are, and it's life, and it opened up a different door for me.
You know, when you look back at your career and you look at people like, you know, you said Cooper Cronk, clean living. When you look back, like sometimes I look back and I go, fuck, mate, I wish I had this better run and I didn't, you know, go out and drink and all that kind of stuff. Do you look back at your life going, if you didn't drink, where could you have been? If you didn't party, where could you have been?
I think about that now, but everyone says there's a bit good advice I got when I was younger, and we've all heard it a million times. You can't put an old head on young shoulders, and it's the truth, isn't it? So where you are in your life is the decisions you make, and from an early age, I had that really professional side towards footy, but I had a loose side. You know, I've had that since I was a kid, and I loved playing footy and I loved celebrating just as much. You know, it was the group of mates I was around coming through was, you know, put everything into our footy and then enjoy our life as well. And coming into first grade at a young age, the culture was similar to that when I first came in, especially being a young halfback. I came into a Roosters team, coming off the big success. There was still a little bit of a drinking culture there, and being a young halfback, debuting at 17, and I enjoyed the footy side of things, first and foremost, but I loved the beer with the boys. And probably the thing with me around drinking was a balance around it. My personality has always been a bit up and down and extreme in some ways. And alcohol and adding those sort of things into my life would always throw my moods out. But I suppose when you're younger, you just accept that as just the way life is. Yeah. But as I said, now I'm older and I've seen how much clarity I get from making big changes and taking alcohol and all the rest of it out of my life and finding really who I am and finding that peace. Yeah, I wish I had changed it earlier. I think I would have been a way more consistent player. There was periods in my career when I actually didn't drink. I had some bad reputation here and there with a couple of stories that popped up, but majority of my career of those 300 games, there was plenty of seasons where I didn't touch a sip all season, because footy was always my focus, and I knew what I had to do to be a professional. But it's the cycle of drinking. We spoke about it in depth just before. You had some really good points of view around the cycle of human nature, and how we develop our behaviours and what we think's right and wrong. And it's not till you slow down and you're conscious of what's really going on, which comes sometimes, for me, it's come with maturity, that you're able to sort of see where you really let yourself down, I suppose.
Because obviously, like your dad, he's had a massive career. He's big in the game as well, Wayne Pearce, but he didn't drink.
No.
Right? What kind of advice did he give you, like coming through, or was it? And sometimes it's hard. Yeah. Like when it's your own dad, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I get that. You know, and we kind of rebel against our parents a bit anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we always think they're the ones that are wrong. Our first inclination, even when I was young, it was like they're coming against me. Mm-hmm. Right? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I grew up in a family. So my dad grew up in Balmain when his dad died when he was 14 from alcohol and smoking, and lived a hard life, big gambler. Dad had two brothers. They grew up in a one-bedroom house opposite Leichhardt Oval back in the day when Balmain was a pretty rough area. And so I sort of grew up around, not my dad drinking, but in our DNA, in the Pearce side of the family, there's a heavy drinking culture. So it's only natural that we probably got that streak in the blood. But Dad was the smart one, right? He jerried to that from an early age. What I've always admired about my dad was, he was the older brother in that family. Both Dad's brothers I'm super tight with. They're big drinkers. They'll sit at the pub most days. But Dad was the older brother, and I think the trauma of losing his dad at 14 and being that senior figure in the family kind of shaped his career. He stopped drinking. He went down the healthy path, which is how admirable is that, And I look back as I'm older, to do it in the 80s as well, when you didn't drink, you were looked at different. Coming through, and especially as a forward in a hard era around Balmain, for him not to drink and make that choice from a 14, 15-year-old is pretty unbelievable, And I don't know if growing up, coming through, having a dad of such influence and a fair bit of, Dad's a strong figure, and he was like that in the family. Dad never pushed me. He never once said to me, mate, you got to live like me. I actually didn't play footy till I was 10 or 11. I kept wanting to play before that, but Dad wouldn't. He sort of pushed me away from it a little bit, probably knowing the pressure and expectation that was going to come if I followed his footsteps. But even around alcohol, 15, 16, when you start going out and playing up a little bit and drinking, he never once said to me, mate, don't do this and be like me. He was actually the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about my father, is that he's never once pushed me. He'd be the first to pick me up from a house party when I was pissed or things like that. I look back now from an older head though, and I think there was probably a lot of insecurity and rebelling that you spoke about earlier, that you see when you're older, that I didn't realise at the time, but it was my maybe way of working out who I was, and it led me down that path of. There was definitely a part of me in my early teens and then coming into first grade, bit of a chip on my shoulder, not conscious. People probably didn't pick up on it, but now I look back on it, there was probably a chip on my shoulder, a bit like he was like that, but I'm like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe to deal with the pressure and stuff.
Well, let me ask you this then: is it, it's like you don't want to be known. Like most people don't want to be known. Oh, that's Wayne Pearce's son.
Yeah.
You wanted to sort of forge your own way, right?
Yeah.
Or like my brother, you're Murat's brother, which I didn't mind, but a lot of people, they don't like it.
Yeah.
They don't like in the family. They want to know. They don't know it's Mitchell Pearce.
Yeah.
It's not Wayne's son.
Yeah.
Was that something that was like playing on your mind? I want to forge my own path. I don't want people to know me as Wayne's son.
Definitely, yeah. It was. And I used to get I was a bit funny when I first came through. I started when I was about 16, 17. I was playing really good footy. I was always in the teams above my age. I was playing, I signed with the Roosters when I was 16. I was playing, Jimmy Dimmick was actually my flag coach. I was only 16 playing under 21s. I captained the Australian schoolboys, 17. And so things were moving really fast for me. But I always had an insecurity around forging my own name. I look back on it. I wasn't walking around, with my head between my legs with an attitude. I don't think, but it was just I knew in myself. I was always very conscious of trying to prove myself, and forge my own path. And I just didn't want it. There was a few times when I was younger. Naturally, as we know what the media is like, there was positive stories. When I was coming through the grades, but it used to make me really introverted when I'd see that. I used to get a fair bit of social anxiety around that. I used to hate going to training and having that kind of that pressure around me and the talk. I didn't like it.
It's like you want the recognition, but you don't want it out there.
Yeah.
You want like, hey, Mitch, you've done well, but man, let's keep a lid on it, yeah?
Yeah.
But then when you have it all over the newspaper, all over the news, then it's like, fuck, how do I deal with this now?
Yeah. Yeah. It was just, I think because of the rapid rise I had too, I came into first grade young and I just think, I was always subconsciously rebelling against Dad a bit. We're always good mates. We've become better mates, I think, as I've gotten older. But it was never on Dad's end. He was the first one there. He would have been in my corner regardless. He never, like I said before, he's never once pressured me. He's never once told me to play footy. He's never once told me to get off the piss. All these sort of things. He's just let me be and grow as I can, grow in my own way, which is a great credit to him as a father. But at the same time, there was a fair bit of rebelling there, I think. But you can only speak about that now as we're 35, can't you? And it's a great question because at that age and you don't see things like that.
Well, I remember when I was 19, I used to, have like these little fights with my mum. Then I'd go to my brother's 10 years old. I go, mate, I don't think she likes me.
Yeah.
Like, and it couldn't be further from the truth. But so a lot of times when you're young, you can't figure those little things out.
Yep.
And you play these mind games with yourself almost. And then while you're playing those mind games with yourself, you almost self-inflict more pain on yourself by doing the wrong things.
Big time.
And that it kind of looks like that is what happened to you in your career. Like you have this rapid rise.
Yeah.
You have everyone giving you a pat on the back, the media. Yeah. You're Wayne's son, and you're like, who the fuck? Who am I?
Yeah.
Was that going through your mind, like questioning, who the fuck's Mitchell Pearce?
Yeah, I think, it's a great question. I think I'm just trying to, definitely there was a lot of, I look back on my career in the early days and then pretty much most of my career, it was a really uncomfortable time. Like I loved footy and I would never change what I was doing, but footy for me was such a roller coaster. I just felt like, you're a competitor but you're dealing with wins and losses and you're dealing with expectation. Meanwhile, you're probably looking for the way my pattern was. You're fully committed to footy, but then you're looking for escapes whenever you can. And that's been till this point where now I've sort of stopped drinking alcohol and I've become more at peace with myself. That was the cycle for probably 12, 15 years of my life. I got in this habit of footy season. I'm totally obsessed about footy. I'm riding the highs and lows of a footy season. I'm trying to stay balanced as a personality in the mix of it all. And then in the early days, you go back to it, you're probably battling a bit of insecurity around your name and all this sort of stuff. And alcohol and those type of things were definitely something I think I went to firstly because it was fun.
To escape, right?
But then secondly, as you get older, you see it was to escape. And a lot of the times I had scandals or situations where I've sabotaged, and it's happened a lot, that pattern of in relationships or in footy or when I felt like things were going really well for me, you know, there's that little voice sometimes, do I deserve this? And you find ways to sabotage it. And it's and being older and speaking to different people about the way the mind works, I'm more aware of that now. And I look back and I see how destructive some of my behaviour was.
Well, I remember when I was young, being in the fitness industry, I wouldn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you said before, I feel like, do I deserve this? Am I worthy of this?
Yeah.
Can I actually do this? Yeah. Am I putting something on that I can and I'm not this person?
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to like rugby league, you play a Friday night, hard game, close, you win on the bell. How the hell do you go to sleep and re-regulate yourself? Because like when I look at it, especially like with like everything we've talked about, how you grew up, your personality, then you have these games where you're on such a high, you just win. Yeah. It's a Friday night or a Saturday night. It's a late game. You're not out of the sheds till 11 p.m. Yeah. I look at those players and I go, mate, like people that have a high expectation on these guys, and with all that adrenaline, they're probably not sleeping till like 3, 4 in the morning on that day.
Yeah. Yeah, that cycle of games, adrenaline, and then coming. So after games, it was I couldn't sleep much. And then you had alcohol in the early days to all of that. You just got to think about how unhealthy that is.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
And it's obviously probably no different in your role in a high energy job where you're managing a big business or lawyers and this type of stuff. You know, you got to find balance and ways to deal with stress, don't we? And that's the whole thing around well-being and meditation and all that now, is to find, you know, your balance where you can, you stay in control of your life. And I'm first to admit that was difficult for me. But I think in footy you get in a cycle. You know, footy's so structured. It's routine based. You got your pre-season where you're coming in to get as fit as you can. You have your Christmas break where you let yourself down a bit, you know, relax, have a beer, then you're back into your pre-season again, and then it's just a cycle of wins and losses, and then you're on your holidays again. And then that goes on for basically 18 years. So you think about the roller coaster that is, I wouldn't say it's unhealthy, but if you don't manage it right, it can be draining. I think there's a lot more awareness around it now, in the fact that there's so many sports science people in there and teaching people meditation and all this sort of stuff and how to deal with things. But yeah, as a footballer, you got so many different bullets coming at you all the time. You know, you're dealing with, you know, for me, I had the big, that origin, which was a blessing, but that origin pressure every year as well. You know, that was like a real mid-season every year, and it was a make or break. If you're not winning those series, like, you know, there's some dark days after that. So yeah, it's a great.
How is that? What happens there? Like, because you lost a lot.
Yeah.
In the origin, like,
yeah.
Like, do you go, fuck, I hope they don't pick me? Like, what goes through your mind, man?
Someone only asked me this the other day, and my answer was straight up. I've never, as a competitor and someone in my character, I could never quit in something. You know, I couldn't live with myself if I knew there was an opportunity and I pulled out to dog it, you know?
Yeah.
I couldn't live like that. And that's one thing I'm proud of my career, that I, regardless of what was going on or criticism, I felt like I always led from the front, you know, personally. Like, I always put my balls on the line, and whether we won or lost, I always competed. And I think that shows character and courage, week in, week out, to keep turning up regardless of what's going on. But man, there was some series there where you knew what was coming if you lost. And as we know here, the momentum that builds up, and especially when you've lost 1, 2, 3 as a whole state, and you're the main player, that halfback, there was so much anxiety around that time.
Especially the halfback.
Yeah. There was a lot of anxiety.
Like, look at Mitchell Moses. He looks like the king at the moment.
He's the king today.
Right?
Yeah. I want to be him today, bro.
10 out of 10, right? What's the pressure like for Queensland for him?
Well, yeah,
it was probably one of the best games a halfback could have played for New South Wales.
Killed it.
Like, the level he played at.
Yeah.
Like, they were giving him 10 out of 10. I was watching Fox News after the game.
Yeah.
And they've already, like, the tabloids were already out. The tabloids, like, of what he done.
Yeah.
Like, how does someone like that then go to Queensland with that pressure, where all the Queenslanders are just going to come after him?
Well, yeah, it's part of sport, isn't it? You know, and we laugh about it. Mitch should be feeling like an absolute. That's what it makes you feel like.
Yeah,
you know?
but he's like we were just talking.
You
He's
feel
on
like
the biggest high right now.
Today he'll be waking up like he's unbreakable, and that was the beauty of it. And that's the thing with sport, and that's what you love about it. When you win, you feel like Superman, especially as a halfback, and when you've had so much influence on a game, there is no better feeling. No drug or alcohol, anything can replace that. Yeah. And when you lose, you know you gotta brace yourself for everything that's coming. But you gotta learn to love that as a competitor. I think it's the same in any sport, regardless what you're playing at that elite level. You gotta deal with. You got to learn to love the roller coaster. You got to learn to love the wins and losses, and you got to find strength in. You got to find resilience in coming back from hard times, and you got to learn to be humble to deal with the good times. And that's the guys that have longevity in any sport or any job in life. I think is the ones that can stay humble in good times and learn resilience in bad times.
In 2013, when Sonny Bill came to the Roosters, like, obviously, you know, he converted, he doesn't drink. What was that like, him coming to the Roosters, and did that have an effect on the players going, hey, we're not drinking?
Yeah, he was huge. I had a great relationship with Sonny, still speak to him a bit now. And him coming that year, so we were at an age, we're all sort of early 20s. Sonny was, I think he was 27, 28, but we were all sort of 23, 24. So he's a few years older than us. We all came through watching Sonny, and every bloke in the world would love to be Sonny, you know.
That's right.
He's got
the stature.
He's the ultimate, alpha male, isn't he? In all ways, and a champion guy. So when Sonny came to the club and there was talk about it, we were obviously excited. And then when he actually walked in the door, just his presence. The best thing about Sonny, and I just spoke about being humble. You know, he's just so humble in everything he does, but he sets the example. He's not a massive talker, Sonny. He's not someone in video sessions that. It's telling people what to do or anything like that, but he's just, you know, just everything he does, the way the clean living, obviously the religion and his faith. He lives a very clean life. He's found peace in the way he does things, and just being who he is, you'd follow him regardless, even if he was drinking or doing all that, just because of who he is and the player he is. But the lifestyle choices that he lives by, you can't help but want to follow him. And you know, we're at an age where we're probably finding who we were a bit. Still, most of the boys still having a beer here and there, but it was the stuff that he did around diet, going to yoga on days off, all these little 1%ers that Sonny drove was a massive reason that the energy changed. But that year, it wasn't just Sonny. It was, you know, we had Minnie, who was our captain, Anthony Minicello, who he'd gone through all his career and setbacks, and then Minnie had found peace in his diet and his lifestyle as well. So we had our leaders were all this. They just set a great example on how to live your life. They were good men as well. You know, they were humble. We had a lot of big personalities in that 13 team as well. Like you look across at our roster, there's Kiwis, Australian, and Origin players pretty much in every position. It was the most connected I've ever been in a team. And even when we all get together now, like you think about the amount of personalities and big egos that could have been, we're all tight mates. And it's even like that when you see each other now. And that's very rare, because sometimes you get that many personalities in one team and there's a bit of disconnect. Everyone was just tight, and it's the kind of people that they were. And, you know, you speak about Sonny, he's a good man. Yeah,
and obviously Trent Robinson, you know, would have done a great job bringing those different characters together, knowing that I got these strong characters, you know, got these veterans in the side. What was his impact like in the team and with you as well?
Yeah, well, you got to think, Robbo that year, so Robbo he was my age, 35 when he was coaching.
Wow.
Yeah, so most people probably don't realise that, or people that are close to the club would, but Robbo was 35, so he was over in France. So we had him in 2010, we made the grand final, got beat by the Dragons. We were all young kids, and Robbo was our assistant coach that year. He went over to France, coached over there for a couple of years, got the opportunity to come back. So you got to think from his end as well. He must have been nervous. Like he was a first-time head coach of an NRL team, 35 years of age, and he had the quality of the team that we had. So, but never once did I ever think, oh, this bloke's young. Like as a coach, it just shows the class of him. He was just the out-and-out leader, super intelligent about footy. He taught us a lot of stuff about things like that we didn't really approach our footy about before, like the long game of building pressure, big defence focus. So all those things really changed our perspective on how to win big games, and it worked for us, and we won the comp. But Robbo's a super intelligent bloke, very emotionally intelligent. He's got a great knack of tapping into your strengths and weaknesses, and he knows how to get you going. And you don't probably realise that till you leave a club, that impact that he had. You know, he's always creating a tense environment and stimulating the right, you know, pushing the right buttons.
What's it like having like Nick Politis there? Like, you know, obviously, you know, when people talk about the Roosters, like it's Nick Politis' team.
Yeah.
Really. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, what was his effect on you and the other players around you?
Yeah, Nick, he's the godfather, isn't he, Nick?
Yeah.
You know, he's been, and then Nick to me has been, ever since I came into the Roosters. So Ricky Stewart was there when I first started, and he was the main reason I sort of went. Yeah. And obviously I met Nick in those early days, and they sort of opened the door for me and had a lot of respect for me at that age, which is priceless, and that gave me a lot of confidence. One of the main reasons I went. But from my early days at the Roosters throughout my whole career, Nick was a huge support. And he doesn't have to be, does he? You know, like he obviously supports the club and gives so much of himself. He is the club, but you know, individually, like especially the boys, and even now I'm back there working, doing some academy stuff, and I've obviously publicly went to Newcastle and then went overseas. But when you've been a good servant to the club, he's very loyal, Nick. That's one thing people probably underestimate about him. When you're a long servant at the club, he keeps in contact with you and he really looks after you. And I can't say the same about every other club. A lot of these clubs say this sort of stuff, but he's rock solid, Nick, and he's always been good to me.
That's why people don't like the Roosters.
Well, that's it.
Because they stick together. Look, I don't mind them. I mean,
who are you follow, brother?
Fucking Manly. I wish we had Nick Politis as the main man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference because, you know, for Nick, he's seen different players come and go, do the wrong things at that club. You know, Todd Carney's another good mate of yours, and he's changed a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he has. Toddy's flying.
But what was it like, you know, like back when you guys were together? I mean, fuck, it would have been a lot easier to do the wrong thing, huh?
Yeah. Well, man.
Would you egg each other on or
how
would it work?
Well, the year Toddy won the Dally M and we played 2010 grand final, Toddy didn't drink all year.
Yeah, wow.
And I got off it with him as well.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show, doesn't it, what we spoke about before, when you got that natural talent, you know, eliminating all these distractions out of your life pays dividends. Yeah. Toddy would say that himself. Toddy's been off the drink now about 18 months himself, doing crazy good things, manifesting so much stuff, and it's a great lesson for young kids to stay away from all that shit, you know what I mean? And Toddy would say that himself, but we had plenty of fun together. I won't lie, but football-wise, Toddy himself is one of the most talented players I've played with. He was like that from a young age, come through Canberra, obviously had his ups and downs, but purely as a footballer and as a half, he's one of the best I've ever played with. And yeah, he had all the talent in the world. And 2010, you know, people go back and watch the way he played that year. He was unbelievable.
That was an unbelievable run that you guys had.
Yeah.
Braith was in the side too, right?
Yeah, Braith was captain.
I remember that semi-final, that field goal.
Yeah.
Was running backwards.
Yeah, it was unbelievable that.
I actually wanted you guys to win that grand final.
Yeah, I know.
And he's lost to
Dragons.
Yeah.
It was disappointing, that
Wayne
one.
Bennett, coach.
Yeah, we had a good first half. So that year, as you said, we had a real dream run. We probably didn't have too much expectation. Brian Smith took over at the start of the year, so we sort of didn't have too much expectation on the team. We knew we'd go a bit better. Obviously, Toddy came along, Nate Miles. There was a couple of who else was Jason Riles was there, a couple of older heads. But it was just one of those years again, similar to 13. It was just fun the whole year. All the boys were sacrificing. Everyone was off the drink. Footy was the number one focus, as it always should be.
Yeah.
But sometimes, some seasons and some players, it's just you just find that little bit extra, and that's how you get reward. It's as simple as that. And that year, we built momentum. Back end of the year, we sort of won sort of 9 out of our last 10. Went into the finals, had that famous victory against the Tigers.
Yeah.
played really well through the final series, and then first half against the Dragons, we were on top. Started pissing down rain second half. They got a couple early tries, and look, they were a better team. Look at on paper and probably on form and the way they approached their footy, they deserved their win, and they got the bickies on the day. But yeah, I hated that. Losing that grand final was a great lesson for 13. We spoke before about Origin and how Queensland would have approached the second game after losing the first one, that subconscious complacency maybe.
Yeah.
I look back on 2010 and losing, like all my processes and going into the game and focus was at the highest level, but it's not till in hindsight you look back where my approach in 13 after losing that one, it was like that do or die. I can't explain it, but it just felt different because of the experience of the one before.
But even that 13 game, you were losing that against Manly.
Yeah.
Like I was there.
That was a good game, that.
Fuck, I wasn't happy. I'll tell you about that year. I'll tell you what was good about that year. I'm in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
We went to a pub and we watched the Manly South game.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a terrible supporter, and I'll admit it.
Yeah.
So we were losing, and I go, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not even watching the game.
Yeah.
My brother was there and a couple of other Manly fans. They go, mate, what kind of a fan are you? I said, mate, I'm going down here. I'm just going to have a drink. Anyway, Manly start to get back in the game.
Yeah.
And then I started watching. They go, mate, what are you doing? I said, mate, they're starting to win. Yeah. But when they beat South, I thought, mate, we're gonna roll the Roosters.
Yeah.
But you guys, it was Sonny Bill where he made that break.
Yeah.
And that turned the game.
Yeah.
And you just did
that offload to Jimmy and
yeah. And it turned the game. And I think your winger, when he scored that try in the first half where he jumped.
Daniel is the best.
Like there was like when you look at games, right?
Yeah.
You can look at moments in that game. And like Robbo said to you, it's the long game, and you just won the moments.
Yeah. No, we did. But we showed a lot of resilience. Like, as you being a Manly fan, both teams had so many opportunities on the attacking both try lines in good ball. We had heaps of big moments defensively to keep Manly out. Obviously, Cherry Evans and Kieran Foran, they were the best halves in the comp. Me and Jimmy were backing ourselves as well. But I think Cherry and Kieran were the benchmark as far as the footy that they were playing with Brett Stewart out the back. And so we were getting plenty of questions asked at us, and we just kept turning up. Defence for us that year, but was the theme. Like, I think we kept 5 teams to 0 during the season. I think it's one of the best records in the history. Wow. So we trusted our defence, and we got tested. And as you said, we went down by 10 points in a grand final. That's hard. You're getting nervous.
Yeah.
But we showed our nerve. I never felt in that game that we're going to lose. And that sounds weird, but even when we went down by 10, there was about 25 minutes to go, and I just knew if we had got back to our sets, we had the players, because we just had players that would come up with big moments, and the boys delivered. Sonny was our best player in the second half. James Maloney's one of the best I've played with as well. Loves a big game. And Jimmy came up with some huge moments. Michael Jennings, one of my all-time favourite players, comes up with that try.
Oh yeah.
People underestimate the career he had, Jenko. Yeah. Like, he's back there playing at the Roosters again this year, and I love Jenko. And just as a player, like the amount of big moments he came up for us while he had his career at the Roosters, all levels that he played at. Like those boys are unbelievable.
He's
big grey hair. He's greater than us, isn't he?
Far out. I'm looking at him. I'm going,
yeah.
I like seeing great people. It
makes me feel
I'm not that bad. You know what I mean? When you look at your career, at the Roosters and you go to Newcastle, what was Newcastle like for you? I mean, it didn't quite pan out the way you wanted it to pan out there.
Yeah. Newcastle was different. So when the Roosters situation fell through, I came up. I had a few offers. I spoke about it a few times. Yeah. There's a few clubs.
Which clubs was that? You had Newcastle?
Manly, actually. Baz.
Fuck, man. What?
I know.
That could have been all right. But
did
you want to get out of the area?
That was mainly what it was.
Yeah,
Melbourne was another big one, and I spoke about that a bit. So Cam Smith called me.
Wow.
So I had a couple of Ches. I spoke to Ches a bit. Yeah. I had a good relationship with Trent Barrett at the time. I played with Baz in Origin, so I had a relationship with him. So there was some. That was the pleasing thing, because when you have a setback, especially being at one club for a long time, and then you get a bit of attention and other clubs, your ears perk up a bit. You get excited. It's another opportunity. when I went to Newcastle come off 3 wooden spoons. But it was a thing for me. It was like a sense of freedom when I went up there. Can't explain it. It was just where I was at that time. I played in big club, teams here at the Roosters for all my career. The other clubs were similar. If I had my time again, what have I gone?
Who would you go with?
I don't like saying it because Newcastle, I made the choice and I went up there and I had plenty of good memories. But I always pinch myself with the Melbourne one.
I would have gone. Look, if it was me, if it was like, and I'm a Manly fan, but I remember actually we were talking. I remember back then we were talking. And I'm going, fuck, I hope he goes to man. I go, well, shit, we need someone like him. Right? I'll just say, mate, I don't really give a fuck. But if I was in your position, I would have chosen Melbourne for sure. Yeah. Because that would have been a great way to rub it back into Cooper Cronk's face.
You're starting wars here, brother. Me and Cooper are good, brother.
Not in a bad way.
Nah. Oh, we're competitors.
But not just in that, because you would have played with Cam Smith. You would have played with another, mate, Craig Bellamy's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Right, you're making me regret it here now.
But I'm just saying, I'm not saying it in a bad way. I've got it. Yeah. Mate, I don't want to sit down here and list my regrets in life as well. Yeah. But it does play in your mind. Like, I go to myself, if I had the commitment and the working capacity that I have now, in my 20s, it hits me now and then all the time. Yeah. Like when people go, don't worry about the past. Mate, you try and forget about the past. I always say to people, fucking all right, fuck the past. Yeah, fair enough. But sometimes it comes back at you. No, it does. And you go, what if I had done that? Not that you go, hey, listen, I'm going to live in the past. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. I made the decision. It wasn't the right one. Yeah. But I'm going to start living in the future a lot better. Like, I wish I never drank or went out as well. Fuck. Yeah. But those things go through your mind. But, the reason I say Melbourne is Cam Smith, 400 games, he's going to go down as probably one of the best hookers in the game of all time. Yeah. Then you got Craig Bellamy. And then,
Billy Slater, that Munster.
Munster, fuck.
Well, when Cam Smith called me, that was a good moment because I remember getting a message from him.
What did he say?
Yeah, so my mate who manages me was in the Australian team. And he messaged me and said, Smithy just came into my room and he said, can I get Pearcey's number, blah, blah, blah. So when Cameron Smith messages you, it's like a supermodel messaging, isn't it? You're like, you get the butterflies in the stomach. So we had a good chat. He was super keen. The thing that I would have gone there for less money. It wasn't just about money. But obviously their top 30 was locked in. They had to change a lot of things, and it sort of came. It was a bit difficult from their end. But I ran into Bellamy and a few, and Munster and a few of them after, and we sort of have a joke a bit about it a few times. So yeah, look, I do pinch myself with that because I always wonder what that would have been like, and to play with them. They're the greatest ever. They're 2 or 3 immortals down there, but yeah, it is what it is. And like we said, you can always look back and change things in hindsight. But I went to Newcastle, and then it's ended me up to France, and it's just the way things go.
Hypothetical, you would have been playing the Roosters in the grand final.
I know.
That would have been, I'll tell you what, that would have been something.
I know.
2 halfbacks switching and playing in the grand final.
Oh, bro, let's rewind time then.
Fuck. When I was watching that game, I remember when I was watching the game and the Roosters beat them, and it was like Cooper Cronk against Cameron Smith and Craig Bellamy. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like the Roosters against Melbourne. It felt like personality versus personality. Yep. Because, and then, like obviously Cooper Cronk went to the Roosters because his wife is in Sydney. He wanted to be closer to her. And I think it was just at that point where he wanted to transition. Yeah. Spend a couple of years and then transition. Yep. And obviously the Roosters.
Well, it worked out well for him, didn't it? And I've had a fair bit to do with Coops, a little bit to do with him. I'm doing some stuff, academy coaching at the Roosters now, and Cooper is on the staff there as well. So, but no, I had nothing but respect for him. Coming through, I watched plenty of video of Cooper and older halves to learn my trade, and he was the benchmark. And I would have learned something off him. Let's go back to hindsight and regrets. There's no doubt I would have learned a lot off Cooper around game management. He was the pinnacle of that. Something, if I looked at my career, something that, I had plenty of natural ability and a running game, but that owning big moments in big games consistently, I wasn't at their level, and I can admit that. So I would have learnt plenty off him. But I was in a place there where you're a competitor, you're young, full of, I wouldn't say ego, but you're proud. And it was just my reaction to it. But look, I can laugh about it now and smile and appreciate, and it's good to be back around Coops at the Roosters and try and pick his brain a bit.
Did they want you at the Roosters when they were bringing him in? Or did they want you to stay?
They did want me to stay, and you sort of think at the time, you don't know if it's just the old sympathy comment. I've heard in hindsight that they did want me to stay. Look, if I had stayed, played a couple of years, even if I played off the bench, there was some pretty good success there, wasn't there? And then I probably would have played on and played a fair few more years after. Look, we're going back in a bit of a time warp, aren't we?
I know. I don't want to bring back bad memories. Going to England.
Yep. France, sorry.
Going to France because Catalan Dragons, right?
Yeah.
Was that a good move for you?
Yeah, I loved it. It was one of the best things I've done. A lot of the changes I've made and not drinking. So the first year I went over there, so when the opportunity came up, I was in Newcastle, had a bit of a setback that year off the field. Bit of a draining year. So I went away. I was after the COVID season. James Maloney, good mate of mine, my old teammate, had just retired. Was finishing up, at the back end of the year, and I had a relationship with Steve McNamara, who was living down around here actually in Coogee and coached at the Roosters when I was there as assistant coach. So I started getting a few calls from them, seeing if I was open to moving over there. To be honest, where I was at, like going to Super League and overseas wasn't sort of on my mind at that time. But I got through the back end of the year and I was just sort of a bit burnt out and tired from the whole NRL thing. Like I said, I had a bit of a setback. I was in a bit of a funny place personally. So I finished the season, had a bit of 3-4 weeks off and just got away from footy, and then I kept getting calls from over there saying, mate, are you keen? And something just clicked. I spoke to one of my best mates and he goes, because he's been over there before, years ago. He played over second division and just travelled, and he said, mate, it'd be the best thing for you, go overseas. It's one of those things, you think it's a huge move, but until you go and do it, you'll see what else is out there. You've never left the bubble. So first year was awesome. Went over there, travelled plenty, had some good success, but it wasn't until the second year that it hit home for me a bit more. I came back to Sydney. I was actually second guessing whether I wanted to play again. It was just
because a few teams, Parramatta wanted you.
Yeah, there was a couple of clubs back here. Been a shortage of halves and stuff like that. There was, even at the back end of last year, there was still a little bit of talk. People, I suppose, looking for experienced halves and that type of thing. But I came back to Sydney and I was still sort of missing home a little bit. I had a really good year and loved it over there. But I'm so glad I went back over because that was the day I stopped drinking when I was here. I had a big night in Sydney with a couple of mates. Big couple of days, actually, I won't lie. And back end of it, I just had all this weird shame and feelings like I hadn't felt before, and it was really weird. So I remember calling my sister actually. We don't really talk a whole lot about that sort of stuff, but I was just in this bit of a weird headspace, and just something was different. And then from that day on, I haven't drunk. I haven't had a sip of alcohol, but got back on the plane, went back over there, and had probably the best year of my life sober. Played some really good footy. We made the grand final over there. Met my partner. My experience overseas was really life changing for me.
When I do these podcasts, I had Hopper on. Like they go, "Why don't you ask this question? Why don't you ask that question?" I think you pretty much answered everything. You know, like when you look at your past, you're about to get married and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But that's all one thing, really, right? And you've explained everything already. When you look at hindsight of everything in your life, when you look at subconsciously, your dad being Wayne Pearce, being the son of Wayne Pearce, he doesn't drink, but where he comes from, then rugby league, what it is, the culture of what it is, you got to have a drink, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then, coming back from your dad's era, there was no phones.
Yep.
So if you messed up, you effed up. you know, who knows what those guys are doing back then. You know what I mean? Fuck.
They had a good
could've
time,
done
the
whatever.
boys, eh?
But, you know, you get to understand that these players are going to make these mistakes. Like, it's a high-pressure game where, you know, winning and losing, winning is everything.
Yeah.
And if you're not winning, people are getting fired. The coach is under pressure. The players are under pressure. You're playing these late games. You're not falling asleep till the early morning hours. And this is what people don't understand about sport.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, when you look at rugby league itself, some people think it's one of the most barbaric sports in the world.
Yeah.
People that look at, you know, the American footballers, they go, why aren't these guys wearing pads?
Yeah.
You know, you're getting cuts, concussions, like so many things happen, and people don't understand the pressures that come with it. Then playing halfback.
Yeah.
And what the pressure is there. Then playing for the Roosters, there's even more pressure.
Yeah.
Because just the success the club has and what they demand of their players. So, you know, like all the time, people go, why didn't you ask this question? Why didn't you ask that question? I mean, I don't think there's a need to ask that. Yeah. It's like, what did you learn? What have you learned? And I think you've said a lot of that.
Yeah. What did I learn? I think with footy, you learn so much about resilience, discipline, routines. It's the same. Obviously, you could speak for all the success you've had with businesses and training programs. And I think in anything in life, one thing I'm proud of, and I probably learnt that off my father as a young kid, is that you got to work hard for anything you want to achieve. It's black and white, isn't it? It's simple. You got to be disciplined, and you got to. For me, anything that I've achieved in my life through sport has been from having an obsession and a passion. If you don't have an obsession and a passion, you find ways not to get it done.
100%.
And I think for me now, and it's a funny time because when you transition and you're going into the afterlife of footy, you need to fill a hole because you know, to find that same passion that I had for rugby league, like ever since I was a kid, and something just, the curiosity for footy was just there. Like from 13, 14, I'd spend 3 hours, 4 hours at the park every day just practicing passing. I could watch tapes of Andrew Johns and Darren Lockyer for hours. It's just, it was, for whatever reason, it was my passion. And to replace that is difficult. So I think to get anything in life, to any sort of success, you need to have an obsession to your craft. You need to have an absolute passion to want to get better. And you need discipline. And I think footy teaches you all of those things, and you can transfer that, I'm sure, into any part of your life. That anything you want, you need to have full focus in it. You need to have a routine, and you need to be fully committed. Or your brain finds ways to escape, and it's pretty simple for me. And that's one thing I'm so grateful for. And the other thing in football is you're around so many good people. You know, we talk about the pressure and some people are critical of different things about the game, but all in all, rugby league people are fucking good people. I grew up around it. You know, it's a working class game in its core. It's full of good people that are hard workers, and that's what I love about the game.
I said this to a couple of guys that I train. I go, hard becomes easy, easy becomes hard. So if it comes easy, it's going to go easy and it's going to become really hard.
That's mad.
So I'll go, if you're going to just search for something that's going to be hard and put all your efforts into becoming great at it. And that's one thing I realized, like, you know, running a gym this size, you know, like, you know, Kenny and I, we just done a retreat in Fiji earlier in the year, and it was the first one. But me and him were spent, like, because I had to coach all these people. Everyone depended on me. And like, people go to me, what was it like? I go, mate, I didn't rest. I go, you know, we're there for five days, but I was there 2 days earlier. And man, it's just like planning and going, okay, how am I going to be able to, you know, some of these people I don't know. I go, how am I going to connect with them? Because I don't have much time. And you got to really, really focus and dig deep on that. And, you know, we got another one coming at the end of October. And I was talking to my mate in Thailand yesterday because I'm going to do it there. And he's here for 6 weeks. Very, very smart individual that's, again, massive transition in his life. He's changed so much. You know, I've known him for so many years, and we spoke for about 45 minutes. And, you know, I'm going to do Thailand. I haven't been there yet, but I'm going in August. I'm going to spend a week there. Now, I now know how to do it. It becomes easy. But you have to know how to connect with people very fast that don't know you. They're all coming there for a purpose. They want to meet people. They want to change their lives. They want to break the pattern of what's been holding them back. And I kind of love that pressure. You know, I thrive off that challenge of being able to do that, and I don't have much time, and I have to make these people believe that they have the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And like going back to you, and I take my hat off to you, man, because I didn't know. Like I remember speaking to you. I knew Manly wanted you, but didn't know Melbourne.
Yeah.
But then going to Newcastle and then going to the Catalan Dragons, but to I'm being honest now, just to do what you've done in your career, and to have the pressure that you had, man, like I would harness all that. I would utilize all that experience. And I think for this next phase in your life, just back yourself where you go, mate, I'm going to have all this covered, and whatever I don't have covered, I'm going to learn enough about it, and just demand what I should have demanded in my career of myself. You know what I mean? And I think if you do that, I think you're going to be fine, because one thing I learned in business is, like, sometimes I've let people go for a bit too long when they haven't pulled their weight. Or they should have done the work they promised to do. So I'd rather just be honest with them and call people out, but still have a relationship and go, mate, it's cool, you couldn't do the work. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And I think you've seen enough to be able to take that into anything.
I love what you said there about honesty, building trust, and vulnerability. Like I think that's one thing sport gives you, doesn't it? And you probably underestimate that. It's all built on trust and teamwork and vulnerability. You're sharing things in sport. That's why relationships with your true friends in sport is hard to replicate. Obviously, your boys you grow up with, and you go through things, through your whole life. You can create that, but majority of things in life, you don't get that depth that you can create in sport or in team, like you said, with stuff with your work, unless you get in and get vulnerable and be real. And that's such a probably thing that's underestimated in society. Like sport, you take for granted. Like I've always loved that part of it. I love, especially as a halfback, my job was to connect everyone, bring everyone together, and I built my style as a half or as a leader around vulnerability. I wanted to have trust in my teammates and understand them inside out. And it's, as you know, it creates something deeper than just face value shit, And it's really interesting what you were saying about transition and using all these skills, because I think, coming to the back end of my career, I was definitely doubting life after footy. It's normal, it's the unknown, and there's a lot of players that struggle with it. But we go back to what we spoke about earlier. I think if I was giving any advice to anyone, something that's worked for me is taking out, the drugs and alcohol, and taking out things that just don't help you. And that's you got to take accountability at one point, don't you? And you can go through the cycles and blame and have excuses, or you can work out what works, have some self-analyzing, get vulnerable, and go after it. And that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm not perfect, but that's what I'm trying to do.
No,
anyway.
but bro, when I was talking to you the other day, that's why I connect well with you. Because I wasn't perfect, and I had a lot of self-doubt. There's certain times I still have self-doubt, especially what I'm going to do next.
Me too, bro.
People go like, "What's it going to be like in Thailand?" I go, "Look, I got it covered in my head. I go, I'm pretty confident in that now because I've done it, and I can do it anywhere in the world. I just need these few things, and you're probably like me. I just feel like I'm always a student, always learning. Always learning." Always trying to get better, always trying to go, what's hard? Because if I go into what's hard, it always serves me. If I go into what's easy, I'll go, I'm going to take the pedal off the metal, and it's not going to work for me because it never has. And that's why I always say to people, like, choose what's hard and put your work in that area, because rugby league, playing halfback was hard. There was so much pressure, but you put everything into it. So if you choose that and you go, I'm going to be good at this, but I'm going to know at every point what's happening, because I just want to have the information required to make the best possible decision. Now, if I make the wrong decision, that's cool, but at least I was informed enough to make the right decision, because at the end of the day, you can't be 100% with everything.
It's like what you said, if you have an alibi in anything, there's always an out, isn't there? And subconsciously, it doesn't work properly, does it? And then, I can live with myself. Like I said, I've made mistakes in footy. I've failed. I've failed in big games. I've had good and bad. But I know that I've always prepared and given it 100%. Like in my heart, I know that when I attacked football, my career, you know, good or bad. And yeah, I would have dealt with things better, or I should have showed more temperament, or as we said, I've escaped at times. But I know that I gave everything I could to the game. I tried to learn as much as I could from rugby league for 25 years, ever since I was a kid. And you lead from the front foot, and that's all you can do, can't you? And I think if you do that as a man, you know in yourself that you've had a crack, you know, and that's all you can do.
And you know what, too, Mitch, you're talking from experience, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, going through that, I'd rather talk to the guy that had failed and then come out the other side than the person that never failed, because, well, I don't even know what failure is like, because you can't explain it to me.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to struggle. I go, well, mate, you went through this side.
Yeah.
Now you're a channel like Sonny Bill.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you went through that to get to this point.
Yeah.
And sometimes, but then let's never discount the people like your dad, even like my brother.
Yeah.
They're almost like the perfect person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I take my hat off to them because I go, fuck, these guys had everything. They had grenades, they had bombs, they had everything around them. Yeah. Everything that could have gone wrong and what it was like living during that time, they had it. I take my hat off to those guys as well.
Yeah.
Well, I go, how did they get through it?
Yeah.
But then I take my hat off to guys like you too that was there, got distracted, because those two things happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's like you just said, it's reality, isn't it? You know,
100%.
Life is, and then I'm working it out. You never get to a point where it's. I had a conversation with someone recently about that. When you're playing your footy career, I know it was for me. You're in your early 20s. You go, when I finish, I'll just kick back. Or you know, when you're 15, you go, once I play first grade, I'll be content.
Yeah.
You know, you speak to most guys, I'll just play one game and then I'm happy. It's probably the same in business. I'll open a gym and then I'm set.
I said by 50 I'm going to be retired. I'm 2 years. I'm not going to be retired. I'm an idiot. I thought that was the age.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was 45. I said I'm turning 48 this year. Yeah. But you know, now like I've kind of reverse engineered. I said, well, if I stay fit, I could be in it till 70. And I said, well, what about 80? So you know, as long as you want to keep growing and keep changing and adjusting and making things better, I think you're going to be in a good place. But there's going to be a point in your life, you know, when you know. But look, maybe there isn't going to be a point. Look at Nick Politis.
Yeah. Well, they're
still fucking going. He loves it.
And like you
how
said,
old's he? He's in his 80s.
Nick could be.
Would he be in his 80s?
80 something. How good's he look?
Fuck, mate. See,
he's.
I don't think I'm going to stop.
But it's true what you said too. I remember a mentor of mine actually said to me, when I was sort of early 20s, this guy I used to look up to, a bit older guy, didn't play footy, but I used to listen to him a lot as a mentor, and he used to say to me all the time, the war never stops. That's such a good...
That's true, man.
The war never stops, whether it's in a relationship, in sport. When you think you're going really well, like the devil's not far away.
Yeah, man.
And I think you got to... I like to think like that. And that's how I approach things, and I always have tried to do that. When I haven't been prepared for the war, you get bitten.
100%.
You know, man. So I think it's a really good way to look at life, is that the war never stops. Regardless if you've ticked your goals that you thought was going to be the top of the mountain, she's about to go downhill again, and you just got to keep moving forward, don't you?
100%, man, 100%, and what a conversation, bro.
It's mad, bro.
Fucking hell, that went quick, eh?
Is that good?
Yeah, that was good.
That was deep. That's good chat, eh, brother?
Thanks, brother.
Legend. They come up all right?
100%, man.
It's good to chat to you, brother. You're a legend.
Nah, you're awesome, bro. Thanks, son.
That was
good, bro.
Yeah.